We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles!
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Oh, good morning. It's a lovely April rainy, gross Saturday morning, but we're in here morning skate talking all things Flyers, hockey. Mark, we got some other, I feel like I bookmarked a couple of things that are outside the Flyers, still hockey related, some Ovechkin stuff, which is pretty cool. Some Frozen Four, some Penn State Frozen Four conversation, so we can definitely take care of that. But it should be a great morning talking hockey.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the league and really just the game in general. Like you said, the Frozen Four is going on and Penn State being a big part of that. And there's a lot of stuff going on right now.
And listen, I mean, prophetically it happens, but like not soon after our last show, the Flyers decided to move on from John Tortorella, and there's a lot that has come out obviously since the firing, with the interaction with some players in the locker room. Talk to me about one, the move off of Torts this late in the season, and then two, what kind of message does that send to the players that are left based on what has come out since?
Yeah, I think, with everything that has come out since then, since the firing, I think it was one of those things that needed to happen. I understand the feeling that, oh, this team was in free fall mode. This could hurt their draft cap. This could hurt the draft pick. The
status of like where they pick,
the status of where they pick and things like that. But if some of that off life stuff is legitimate and truthful, I can't imagine you waiting. It could do irreparable damage in terms of, because even though the team isn't very good, there are guys on it that are gonna be here, and that was something that I think needed to happen, sooner rather than later. I kind of agree with Briere on that decision. As far as the draft goes, and the draft pick, they're going to pick in the top 10 regardless. Um, Probably the top. I don't think they can fall any further than maybe 6 or 7 at this point.
I was going to say,
Um,
when you talk about the losing draft status and that stock of where you fall, like I feel like that window of where they are really, the caliber of player wherever they're going to pick is kind of the same. Like if they're picking
Right.
6, 7, 8, the difference between the player at 6 and the player at 8 is not this drastic difference.
Right. Like, unless you're taking Schaefer or, um, Misa or Hagens, who are the guys that are supposed to be the top 3 picks, I really don't think. I mean, after that, you have like varying degrees of like quality
Right.
prospect, no doubt.
Oh, most
But
definitely.
you know, I don't know how much that that's going to matter, especially in a draft that isn't kind of seen as like the strongest draft.
Right.
It's kind of like one of those things where you know pick where you're going to pick and take the player that you think has the best long term future, and you should be happy with that. You may even be surprised at what you're able to acquire with that pick, but I don't think that's something that could have waited. Um, you can't have a approval rating with players that low today. It's not just a modern player thing. I think sometimes we think these young entitled guys coming through and um, some of them I don't know, maybe some of them deserve to feel like they've earned that spot, and they are playing in the best league in the world after all, and it it,
It's a
it
different. It's a different era of like,
yeah.
you think about when they're. It's just different. It's the only way I can describe it, right? Like that era of like there's a place for a coach like Tortorella
Mhm.
if the team is ascending, veteran laden, on the cusp. Like you might need a guy like him to bust everybody's chops and really push him over the edge. Um, but like the comments that came out, and it came out on the spit and chicklets guys were the ones that were, at least that's where I first heard it.
Yeah, they were the
Um,
ones that said it.
and they're still they're still dialed into the game. There's still a lot of guys that are in the game that they've played with, that when you hear the comments about, if you get extended, I'll bury you. Like, to a guy who's young and potentially, like, he's not going to be top 5, but he can certainly be a piece on a team that is on the cusp of, like, turning the corner. I just, I completely understand why and how they make that move, and I look at that and go, you just had to do it. You can't have that you've now turned like an authoritarian position into like a completely toxic, you know, it's a completely toxic situation. And you look at how they've played since he's been gone,
Yeah.
and it's hard to argue with the what looks like the freedom at which the guys are playing with.
Yeah, guys are playing a lot freer. It definitely feels that way. And I think also, to go back to something that Briere said after the firing, was that he had said that there was a number of things that led up to this, as there always are in anything. It's never just one thing.
No.
But it seemed like just in general, they had a very uh, difficult time trying to like they were doing this a lot, and
Yeah.
um, not that you have to like disagreements are good. I think especially in that kind of world, you have to kind of I you know we're talking about the draft pick and things like that. There's probably not every scout is in that room
Right.
agrees on that player, you know what I mean? Like, the player that you may decide to go with, in the first round and all, but that's healthy, that's good, you know what I mean? That's how you end up
Hmm.
taking the best player.
Most
Um,
definitely.
so I think but, like, when it kinda seemed as if this had kinda been going on for quite a while behind the scenes, and if I had to guess, I would imagine that the trade deadline had a lot of, um impact on that.
Okay.
And in particular, I think maybe the Scott Lawton trade, um, for a player that was so, instrumental to the room. the dressing room, and that's clearly something that John Tortorella values. You know, he talks a lot about like the culture in the dressing room and things like
Right.
that. And knowing that they were going to move a player like that out, I could imagine that really kind of upsetting him and
Yeah.
in his situation. And you know, but then you know, it's one thing to get upset about a decision that your superiors are making, but then to be difficult to work with for everybody, everybody else
Right.
makes it. You know what I mean? Like you're not long for this, and
No, and I look at it and go, you and listen, and it's hard because you think about the conversation around the team was like that. Tortorella at some point was just going to graduate up into the front office. Like that was
right,
kind of the it's a lot of the conversation that was being put out, and for them to just be like to cut ties completely, we're out with a hand with only a handful of games left. Um, really does say something about you know the organization, and they're like, yeah, we're just not we're we just can't get down with this.
yeah. It was surprising because that had been out there for a long time, Don. Like, oh, he's going to
Mhm.
just move into that front office role. And then when it, you know, you looked at the verbiage that was used, and you're like, wait a minute, did they fired him? Like, you
Yeah,
know what I
they're
mean?
like, yeah, grab it, grab your stuff.
Yeah,
They're
and
not like, oh, he's gonna move into a new role, and we're gonna let y'all finish the season, and
yeah,
no, they were like, no, we can't have you around because I
yeah,
think even if you had aspirations of moving him into the front office at some point,
yeah,
when you say to a current young player, if we extend you, I'm gonna essentially, in so many words, I will bury you. I'm gonna figure out a way to make your life miserable. Like you can't be in the front office.
yeah,
Like you can't be in the same room with Danny Briere and Keith Jones, and be the guy that's gonna just create a situation where you're gonna be toxic for the guy. Like
yeah,
and what does that say about guys that you potentially might want to bring in? This could be a really big offseason for them in terms of wanting to bring in talent. I think sending the message that they value the player is a really important message to send going into this offseason.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that was probably a big part of it, right? Like this is this is an off season where they kind of have a lot of things. They have a lot of ammo, right? There's cap space, there's draft picks, there's an opportunity to improve the group, like the current on ice group.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, you know, if you're not able to attract players here, like where you're like, yeah, you know, I like the situation. You know, the contract works for me, but I ain't playing for that guy. You know,
Right.
it could be very, it could be really difficult. And I think that all kind of that all was a part of it. It all weighed in on their decision. And then, you know, to look at where they're at now, and they're winning some games now, and as we said, guys are playing a lot freer. You know, listening to Shaw, Brad Shaw, who's the interim coach right now, um, very great, really good communicator. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
really, um, and just a real, um, you know, they're really able to shed some perspective on things. You know, he doesn't play it as close to the vest. In a lot of ways, he reminds me of in terms of like career um, trajectory type of way. He reminds me a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of Rob Thompson from the Phillies,
Oh,
longtime veteran assistant. Never really got, you know, he's had a chance here and there. Players really seem to dig him and want to play for him. And
it's a
you know,
really interesting comp.
yeah, I had thought about this listening to him talk, and I'm like, man, you know, he's got some perspective. You know what I mean? And um, you know, he has said things like, he's had, he deals with players with a lot lighter of a hand, I think was the quote he used.
Yeah.
And that seems like for a rebuilding team, that seems like a good quality to have. And I'm sure we're going to hear a number of names attached to the Flyers coaching search between now and when they hire a new coach.
Hmm.
But I would imagine Bradshaw at least gets an interview because he's done. Um, he got a lot of credit for how the Flyers defense core had played.
Hmm.
Rasmus Ristolainen's game completely getting broken down and remade um, had a lot to do with Bradshaw, according to John Tortorella and others. They gave him credit for that. So um, I'm a little intrigued. We'll see how the rest of this goes. Like I said, we're going to hear, I'm sure, a number of names, but Bradshaw should at least get an interview, I think, for this job to drop the interim tag and maybe go with him for a few years.
So talk to me about some names.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of people are mentioning David Carl from University of Denver.
Okay.
He's as successful as a college coach as you can find. He's also the brother of former Flyers defenseman Matt Carl. So that might make people pull their hair out that don't like Flyers connections. You can look if you look deep enough, you can find a connection to anybody. Hockey's a small circle, especially at that level.
I was gonna say.
So, yeah, his name's going to be out there. I'm sure he's going to have plenty of suitors. Um, you know, I'm a big proponent of Jay Woodcraft. He was former Edmonton Oilers coach.
Okay.
He's been out of the game for about a year and a half or something like that. Um, if you remember way back in training camp, he actually came to a Flyers training camp practice and was kind of picking the brain of some coaches. John
Okay.
Tortorella spoke about it, and I believe he's younger. He's on the younger side. I think he's like 48, 49 years old, which is practically a baby for a coach in the NHL. And I think he's a good tactical coach. I don't think he's too much of a deviation from the kind of systems and things like that they're playing now. Um, but of course, too, he got the Edmonton Oilers turned around. They had got off to a rough start that year that he was with them, that he took them over, got McDavid and Draisaitl back on track, and
All right.
the Oilers got on a run. So, um, he deserves credit for that, or at least some credit for that. And he's coached. When we look at the we look at like guys like Michkov and some of these like higher end young players.
Hmm.
Um, he may have some perspective dealing with like the Draisaitl McDavids of the
Right.
world, and um, I think it was a I think it was a positive thing seen by a lot of people that he was kind of out and about, kind of traveling around, just picking the brain of other NHL coaches.
Yeah, I mean, not to make a cross sports comparison, it reminds me a lot of that interim time where Harry Roseman got like relegated to the other side of the building
Mhm.
when Chip Kelly came in,
Yeah,
and very obviously very different circumstances, but
sure.
from everything that we know, right, Howie Roseman spent a lot of that time picking the brains of you know lots of GMs and others in those roles in various sports, in various countries, right? We've definitely heard reports of him going over to talk to people in the EPL, and that kind of stuff doesn't maybe translate immediately, but you can see kind of long term how that would be beneficial for a guy.
Yeah,
What
yeah, absolutely.
what about a guy like guy that's near and dear to our hearts? What about a former Flyer? What
Mm.
about Rick Tocchet? Because
Yeah,
he's a guy whose name has been out there too.
his name's been out there a lot. He's been the one that I think a lot of people have connected to the job. Um, Still under contract with the Vancouver Canucks, and I believe he's got another year left on that deal, or there's an option on it. There might be a team option on it or something like that. Also, very close with Keith Jones. You know, those guys go way back. They played here together,
Yeah.
um, and I would be open to it. I know a lot of people are not as um, with the former Flyer connection, and it kind of seems like the old boy network here, where you're just hiring your old buddies and bringing guys in. Um, Talkin's had some success. He's also had some, this year in Vancouver, the wheels have fallen off it. I don't, know necessarily how much of that you can lay at his feet, or, you know, I'm Vancouver's been, there's been a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah. So
Um,
from what I'm reading, Mark, so his contract expires at the end of this season, but it includes a club option for 25-26.
okay. Okay. Yeah.
So either the club says stay or his contract is out. And I guess that's probably the reason why his name is being attached as much as
Mhm.
it is, because with the current status of Vancouver situation, it seems more likely that Vancouver would be more likely to move on than they would be to retain him.
Right. I think that's true. And one thing that I think where a lot of us are talking about here, with a lot of people are kind of connecting the dots with the Flyers' interest in Tocchet. My wonder would be, how much would Tocchet want this job? I believe Tocchet's in his 60s now.
Interesting.
I think, you know, at this point, without, unless Briere kind of goes Paul Holmgren circa 2008 off season, 2007 off season, where he's just out there just making all kinds of wheeling and dealing, making all kinds of moves. I
Yeah.
I don't know that the Flyers are primed for immediate success. Um, so you know, is Tocchet interested in the job? A lot of us are connecting Tocchet to the job because of the Flyers' interest, or the Flyers' alleged interest in Tocchet. But
Because
we have,
let's just be honest, because a lot of us have number 22 Rick Tocchet jerseys from when we were kids.
yeah,
And now all of us are grown ass adults. Like that, but I didn't, what's funny is like when you said that, I'm like, I never even thought about that. I never even thought like would it be this, you just assume because of the history that there would be a mutual interest.
mhm,
But I mean, all good points to think about when you're talking about his age and trying to gauge his level of interest.
sure,
Um, you know, I could envision a scenario where maybe if he decides to kind of step away from coaching, that he is there a role that he comes in that's not coach but that's also not front office, like in one of those like player development roles,
mhm.
um, where I think that could be an opportunity for him. I don't know. I'm curious to see in what direction they go. Um, but the names are kind of all over the place, right? You've got
Yeah,
guys in varying situations with guys at the college level, guys at the NHL level. I'm curious as to what what direction they go to in terms of how what are the factors that they're going to use to identify the guy that they end up picking.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I know in Briere's press conference, one of the things he said was that I believe it was Charlie O'Connor from PHLY. I
Right.
think he asked the question of, like, are the Flyers kind of looking for a younger coach? And
Yeah.
Briere had said that that's not necessarily a prerequisite, which I would understand why you would say that.
Sure.
But if I had to make a short list, I think it would have to be a younger coach. The league every year is skewing younger and younger,
Yeah.
in every aspect. Players, front office roles,
Hmm.
coaches, um, and I think to kind of get ahead of that would be that's how you're going to kind of move out of this where you are
Yeah.
now. Is like you're going to have to there's going to have to be some things on all levels, right? Like from the
Hmm.
coaching perspective, you're going to have to find a diamond in the rough type coach to like really break the ceiling.
Yeah.
Um, you're going to
I
have to
mean,
sign
Mark,
some guys.
in the same way, sorry to interrupt, but in
No,
the
no, you're
same way that kind of Carolina, right before they got right, they took a chance on Brindamore, kind of in the same way. Like, do they try to find that type of guy?
mhm. Yeah, and another name that I know that his kind of like his name's been in coaching search uh, talk for a while now, but Todd Nelson is another
Okay.
one. Todd's coaching the Hershey Bears in the AHL. They've had tons and tons of success down there. Um,
And
Lots of
Hershey is an
culture.
affiliate. Is that Penguins?
The Capitals.
Capitals. Okay.
Yeah, and he's I've seen his name come up for quite a few years now.
Okay.
He might be happy where he is at this point, but significant experience and success at the AHL level. You would think it would be natural for him to get back into the NHL. Um, and he might be a name, and he's kind of close by, right? So you can kind of get a
Yeah.
look and kind of chat with him and pick his brain. So um, much like it is every time you're in a situation where you're looking for a coach, they need to cast a wide net
Sure.
and you know get a really quality and large net of potential names. But I
Yeah.
would imagine that if you had a short list, you'd want them to be a little bit on the younger side. I think
Yeah.
preferably. Um,
And I'm curious about the timeline.
right.
Because something tells with as much draft capital as they have invested in these next two drafts, especially this one coming up.
Hmm.
I'm sure that you're gonna whoever is going to be driving this franchise for the next for the next 2, 3, 4 years, hopefully, you're probably going to want that guy involved in the picking of the potential guys coming down the line.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I would imagine, and yeah, I mean, like from you want to you want to some degree be on. Um, you want to be symbiotic, right? You want the coach
Most definitely.
you know, to represent the vision of the franchise, and at least understands that that they're here for. You're always trying to win. That's
Right.
that's that's a baseline thing, for anybody in a dressing room or anybody who's played organized sports ever. Like it doesn't matter what your situation is, everybody's trying to win.
Right.
So that's why right now, like I mean, that's it, the club winning a couple games this year, here, uh, down the stretch in a season that doesn't really matter. I get people's frustration with it, but as far as those guys go in that dressing room, I mean, like they're going out there trying to trying to be competitive and win some hockey games, have some fun, and um, and winning's fun. So I mean, like,
And hockey is a really tough sport to just like kind of like tell guys not to play, right? Like
right,
you can't you can't really tell guys out to go out there and be non-competitive because that's kind of where you end up getting injured.
yeah,
Um,
right,
but like, could you? I mean, in a handful of minutes, Mark, we're going to talk about the Sixers, and that's a whole separate conversation. You
yeah,
could go that route, right? Where you're sitting 10, 12, 14 guys a night. But at this rate, right, you're talking about a team that's, they got 71 points,
yeah.
right? You're a team that, like, I mean, who would have thought, Mark, that I would be sitting here on this day telling you that they've got more points than the Bruins,
Oh,
which is
yeah,
wild to see where they are at the bottom of the Atlantic.
yeah. They're
At
awful.
like, it's, I mean, they are underneath. Uh, the Sabres,
Yeah.
the Penguins, Island, like they are
Yeah.
they are playing really poorly.
It's they are, and I mean that's like a season where I think that's one of those seasons where, like you mentioned, the Sixers, like in Boston. I mean the just this thing completely fell apart for the Bruins. I mean they ended up trading their captain at the deadline. I mean there was a
Mark, they
lot of things.
in their last 10, they are 0-9-1.
Yeah, they're bad, and that's too, like you look at we're talking about, you mentioned like it's hard to, like, in a sport like hockey to have that. Look at where the Flyers are now, and they've had some of the worst goaltending in the league this year, and they're
I mean,
still not the worst team, like,
it's really bad. Like the
so
goaltending is really bad.
yeah. So the Flyers have gotten terrible goaltending for most of the year, and they're still not the worst team, because, like, there's other teams that have bad goaltending, bad defense, just a trash group of forwards, and you know what I mean. Like, and
I
it's
mean, it really is. It, it does give you an opportunity to put things in perspective.
yeah, yeah. Like, would you want to be like? I mean, I know that I much rather be in the Flyers' shoes than our cross-state rival here, where they're like
Yeah.
older. There's not a lot of cap space.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a ton of young players coming through. So I mean, I, that looks like a multi-year process just to get out from underneath some of those contracts and things like that. And
Yeah.
um, so I mean, when you're bad, I mean, you look around the league, and there's teams just as bad or worse. And how bad do you really want to be? Like, at some point, like,
Right.
do you, there? I mean, like, nobody's sitting here telling you on this show. I mean, we certainly haven't over the last few shows that the
No,
Flyers
no,
are
no.
like, they have plenty of work to do on their own, but you know, I don't know how bad you can be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how much worse could you be other than doing a Sixers, like pulling guys out of a lineup and sitting them?
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're sitting here with, from everything that I can tell, right? And I'm trying to do this on the fly, but you're around the sixth worst record,
Yeah,
right? So, you know, what now? Talk to me about real quick because I want to talk about we got a couple of things that we're going to run through, but like talk
yeah.
to me about the draft lottery and
Mhm.
how the lottery works.
Yeah. So I think, well, now I don't think you can't pick first back to back years. I don't think you can't pick like first overall.
Okay.
And um, so I- you know, I think it's like it's all like it's a weighted lottery, right? I think the Flyers have like a 6, 7, 8% chance, I think, to move up to first.
I'm just going to look it up real quick.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Gotcha. No
So
worries.
yeah,
All right. Lottery odds. All right. All right. A team can move up a maximum of 10 spots in the draft order. There are two drafts. There are two drawings, one for the first overall pick, one for the second pick. Everything
mm,
else after that is based on your record.
yeah,
Team cannot pick more than twice uh, in the top in a 5 year span. They can't have the top pick twice in more than a 5 year span. So,
right. Okay, okay, that's
so
worse.
listen, we'll say.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of playing freely, Mitchkov
Oh yeah.
has this. You know, he's got the stretch where he's scoring a couple goals a game. Has kind of elevated himself up to a legitimate conversation with for the rookie of the year. I know you have put out a stat, right? His he's got 18 career multi-point games, tying Peter Zezel for sixth most by a Flyers rookie in a single season. Talk to me about what you've seen in the last couple games, because he's putting himself front and center in the conversation.
He is, and you said it. You said it earlier in the show, Don. Like, just he looks so much more free now, and I think that there's an element of just letting a player of that caliber. Not that you don't like put them within a framework, you always do,
Mhm.
um, but allowing him to free flow and kind of create, and then and when he when he has the puck on his stick, and just let him without um, fear of being like reprimanded for making a poor play with the puck, because let's face it, skill players, you know, they turn the puck over. It depends. It's a philosophical thing in hockey, but like,
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that like skill players turn the puck over only because they have the puck so often. Like,
Yeah, and you can only imagine if he was playing. I mean, he's as prolific as he is, playing while not surrounded by a tremendous amount of talent. You could
right.
only imagine what will happen to the points and the goals, the assists totals when you start to surround him with a higher level of talent. When there are plays where he's getting putting the puck on the tape, and guys just can't bury it, or somebody can't get him the puck and he's wide open. So like
The last game, it's funny you said that, because the last game, I think I may have wrote about it. Ryan Paling had mentioned in his post game availability um, what it was like playing with Michkov, and he was saying that you know you have to be ready playing with him. Like that was like the biggest thing, And he was like, he does things with the puck where you're like, wow, I can't believe you just did that. Like, or
right.
and that's a big thing, Like you always hear like at even like really younger youth levels, like like stick on the ice, But you really do have to be ready, because I mean I've seen things from him this year, nothing that like shows up in stat sheets, but his ability to find passing lanes before, in some instances, before they even develop. He's the only one that sees them,
It's
and
it really is incredible.
he gets pucks to guys in positions that like, I mean, if it's surprising them and they're NHL players, you know, I'm just like, through sticks and skates and shin pads and things like that, puts it right there flat for guys. It's really, it's hard not to gush over him and say how talented and how good he's going to be. I mean, like as he gets older and matures, I mean,
I mean, he's just 20,
yeah,
like just 20, like turned 20 at the beginning of the season,
hmm
and
yeah,
he, the I saw. I'm trying to find it. There was a all right. So it was a visual comparison of Bedard and Mitchkov, right? Through through 75 games played in this 24-25 season. For Bedard, 20 goals, 39 assists. He's a minus 38. Mitchkov, through 74 games, 24 goals, 34 assists. He's a minus 13.
hmm
Hard to argue with, and you're also talking about, I would argue with you that he's had significantly less opportunities because of the way that he was being handled by Tortorella earlier on in the season, right?
hmm
Playing a little fearful, because when he would make a mistake, he would sit, or he would be a healthy scratch. And I look at how he's played in the last handful of games, right? And you're seeing him that play free is wildly evident, because
yeah.
you're seeing him have the opportunity, right? And this is as of March 31st, but like he's got even strength points, right? He's got 43 in a 5-on-5. Like he's like, when you look at and he's 9 points above Celebrini. He's 10 points above Celebrini, 9 points above Lane Houston. Like he's gonna make this conversation for Rookie of the Year really, really happen, um, because of his production on the ice in what I would argue is a limited role.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, here's a guy too, like with Michkov coming into this year. I mean, I think a lot of people would have assumed that just looking at his game and the way he plays and his experience in the KHL that he would have been putting up most of his points on a power play as opposed to even strength play. And the Flyers' power play isn't very good and hasn't been very good. But I mean, you look at it in the other way, right? Like if the Flyers power play was even like semi middle of the road, imagine how many points you'd have, you know, um,
Right,
if that were the
just
case.
middle,
Yeah, just middle instead of just
just like average.
yeah, and he might be up around a point per game this season, and
Right,
which I think would put him among the best rookie season from a Flyer ever. I think that would be like Michael Renberg would be up there. As I think Renberg put up the most points in a Flyers
it would
rookie
be
season.
really hard to argue, Mark. And I'm gonna pull up a clip from this clip is from practice the other
Yeah,
day. Um, and I'm sure that this went wildly around the internet, but like you're looking at him come across, right, and he just casually picks up the puck with the back of his stick and throws it over it. I think that's Fedotov because I'm looking at I can't. They don't have numbers on, but he's pretty tall. But literally just picks it up and with almost like no effort and just throws it over his shoulder, like with
yeah,
the Michigan style goal, right? And normally that Michigan style goal was done from behind the net, right? They
right,
normally come around, they'll try to tuck it in the shoulder, and it's like effortless.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's one thing that I'm looking at going, it just is it allows you to continue to be like really, really impressed. And then there's another one that is all right. So it's a one-time shot from it's another clip from practice, but like you look at the speed at which this happens, and right the puck comes out right like center dot, and it's just like top shelf before they like before the goalie can even figure out how to make a move, puck's already behind him.
yeah,
And if you're getting this kind of production at that level in practice, you can only imagine what he's capable of.
yeah,
We've
yeah,
seen it. We've seen it in games.
yeah, yeah. He's
But
fun to watch even in warm-ups. Like if you're down there early, um,
mhm.
you see like online rushes. Guys are just they're just warm-ups, so they're just warming up, and he's just he's just ripping pucks into the net, like beating Urson and Fedotov just every time down. And very, very, very talented kid, and it's exciting to see where it's going to go,
Yeah.
um, and who they're going to put around them too. Which as we talked about at the beginning of the show with this draft, they have a potential to add some guys that'll be line mates maybe potentially of
Yeah.
Jeffs in the future. So that'll be fun.
Mark, before we jump out
Yeah,
and talk all things depressing Sixers, talk to me about Ovechkin, right? Because Ovechkin is on the verge of creating some NHL history. I saw the uh, the the tickets for their upcoming game in Long Island jumped from moderate prices to in the four figures.
yeah,
Um, couldn't happen to a better guy. A guy that we've talked about before that I would have loved if he played, if he spent his entire career in this town, it would have been an incredible opportunity. Talk to me about Ovechkin, on the precipice of breaking this record.
Yeah, it's just, you know, what a game, like what a gamer, like all these years,
Mm-hmm.
and this record being such a positive, one of those things that I think many of us thought, I don't think anybody thought any of Gretzky's records would be broken. Um,
I mean, considering what those numbers look like.
yeah, and so to see him just on the verge here of scoring and breaking this all-time goals record, um, I think is incredible, and it's great for the game. And it's fun to watch. It's been a pleasure to watch all these years.
Mm-hmm.
And just what a player, man. What a player. Definitely ticketed for Toronto for the Hall of
Most
Fame, and
definitely.
um, and on top of it, the Capitals being a good team, and they're going to compete, for a run. They're going to try to go on a run here for the cup, and that's even cooler, in a season like this. So I mean, I can't imagine the feeling or the vibe in Washington being a Caps fan. It's probably so much fun,
I
this year.
mean, you got to look at that scenario and go right. Like, and this was the tweet of information that really got to me, right? Like that, like Ovechkin broke his leg and missed 5 weeks this season at age
Yeah,
39,
yeah,
and he still scores 40 goals. He'll have an opportunity to break the all-time record. And it says what's crazier is that he'd have well over 1,000 goals by now if it wasn't for lockouts and COVID,
mm, man,
right?
yeah,
Like, I think he has the opportunity. They're talented enough that he has the opportunity to be able to go on a run and and potentially have an opportunity to walk away a champion.
yeah, yeah. There's
You know,
no
he
there.
breaks the record, right? They
Yeah,
go on a cup run, they win a cup, and you have an opportunity to be able to walk away at age 39 as a
yeah,
champion.
yeah, and to for a second time,
Yeah,
um, and to walk away with like such a big legacy goat moment for you, right?
yeah,
To break that Gretzky record, I you know I don't know how you don't like why would you want to put your if that's what happens, why would you want to put your body through another off season? I'd be done after that.
right.
I would just be like, there's nothing else to play for. I've done it all, and yeah, there's no better way to go out. I'd imagine, even if this year is his last year, even if he was just hanging around to break the record. I mean, and
Yeah,
as you said, like, I mean, he probably could play again. 40, scoring 40. I mean,
scored 40 at
40's
40.
40. I mean, like, it doesn't matter what you know, uh, when it comes or what age it is or whatever. I mean, like,
Listen,
um,
we've seen Yager. There's something maybe in the gulag water because we've seen Yager play all the way in through his up
he's
until the last couple
he's still
years in
playing.
Russia,
Yeah,
still playing. Right,
playing in
I
the
think
Czech.
he's probably in his 60s. Like it's a really cool story to see, right? And you know the fact that you have Wayne Gretzky in the locker room,
Yeah,
taking a picture with him with the team,
that was cool.
just like really classy, really really good moment for the NHL, and
Yeah,
just a cool story,
yeah,
So we'll
yeah,
see. Listen, we'll see what and they both here. This is the last stat before we jump out, right? They both have currently 894 goals. They've done it in 1,487 and 1,486 games. The same
wow,
amount of games, same amount of goals.
yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
Really
incredible.
is.
Like you said too. I mean, Ovechkin with the, you know, I think a lot of people thought when he got hurt earlier this year, they're like, well, there goes the record. Like this
Hang it
year,
up.
yeah, like he's not going to be able to do it this year. And what is he even going to want to come back next year to even try?
Right.
And, but just a testament to how, to his greatness, the grade 8, right? Like,
Right.
just comes back and does it anyway.
Most definitely. All right, Mark. I'm gonna play some intro, outro stuff. We'll be back on the other side to try to make heads or tails of whatever's going on with the Sixers. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Well, Mark, it's perfunctory. We have to do it, but
Yeah.
we got to talk about whatever's left of the Sixers season.
Yes.
I'll tell you what. The boss lady surprised. She sent me a text earlier this week going, my friend's giving away tickets. Do you want to go down? She's like, I'm going to throw you a bone. We went down. We were down there to see the game against Milwaukee.
Okay.
First time I've ever seen Giannis in person. Oh, my God. That dude is incredible to watch in person.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about a guy who I looked up at the scoreboard at one point in the third quarter, and I'm going, he's got a triple-double. Like, just casually, just a casual triple-double. And by the end of the game, I'm trying to pull up the stat line right now because he had like 30 and like 17 and 19. Like, he was not getting cheated at all. Now, mind you, right? Like, he's playing against like the backup Blue Coats at this point. There was a guy in the game who got significant minutes. Do you know Carl Castleton? Like NBA G League, probably. What are we doing?
No.
Like what? Like what? Like
I did see
like,
his
what-
10-day announcement, though.
Right, and I love that. Like the 10-day announcements are like these big PR, like the big PR graphics. We're putting it out.
Yeah.
I'm going. I mean, PR team. I know you got to do your job, but like, what are we really doing?
Yeah, I did see that. I saw his 10-day announcement. But I'm doing that. What you're saying, like I've been doing that too. I mean, the other day, I think it was last week. I put them on, and they were in Atlanta. They were playing the
Okay.
Hawks, and my fiance was like, she was like, "You're gonna watch? You're gonna see her watch this because she knows they're bad, right?" And I'm like, I'm watching. Because I like Trey Young, right? Like, so I was like, I
Okay.
wanna
Yeah,
see
you're
Trey.
watching for the other guys.
I was like, I'm gonna watch Trey play. So
Yeah.
you know, so it was like I watched for that. But yeah, I mean, it's the games themselves. I mean, like, what more can you say about the games themselves? I mean, this isn't uh, nobody like the lineups they're running out here are not even lineups that like nobody's
It's
gonna. What's there gonna be like maybe two guys here that are on this team maybe next year, maybe.
right. The
But
guys that are actually playing, right? Like, so Giannis adds the final stat line. I'm just pulling it up 35, 17, and 20.
mm,
Right? Like, he just, and as he should against a severely, but like the guys that got minutes in this game, right? Yabusele, Justin Edwards, Adeem Bona, right? For whatever it's worth, he put up 28 and 6.
he went crazy. Yeah,
He had himself a game.
he
And a
did.
game against as I'm watching, right, is matched up a lot against Giannis when he was on the floor. But like you're talking about Quentin Grimes and Jared Butler and Jalen Hood Shavino and Redding's own Lonnie Walker, Colin Castleton, Ricky Council. Here's how bad it is, Mark. There's a number 36 player listed on the stat line with no name.
It's like
It's
it's
that
like
good.
when it's like when you simulate 10 years ahead in NBA 2K. And it's all the like it's like all the random AI generated players. It's what the Sixers are running out there now.
It really is, man, and it's a shame. It's a
Yeah,
shame because where the season started and the aspirations that they had, but the official eliminated from the playoffs is done, right? The official Maxi's gone for the season. The official Joel's getting the surgery. So let's talk about Joel.
yeah,
Um, the idea that they waited this long between the time that he last played and then the type of procedure that he's going to have, which essentially is like a let's go in and see what's going on kind of surgery. Like the knee scope is like that's what you do when you got no clue, right? When you're
yeah,
just like, oh, we're just going to go in and figure out what's going on. In my mind, Mark, something like that would have been like a perfunctory thing to do as soon as his knee is healthy. Did it take this long for them to see that? Like, that's what I'm like. I question a lot about it. I question a lot about, and obviously there's now some reports that are coming out about his trust in the organization, his trust in the health staff and how they're potentially not potentially, but how they've handled his injury situation. I just don't see how this plays out. I don't know how this plays out in a way that doesn't lead us down a road kind of like this year.
yeah, yeah. Before we jump into that, I wanted to say about
Sure.
Bona too. I saw a
Okay.
stat.
Yeah.
I saw a stat, so shout out Adeem Bona, but
Mhm.
13 to 15 from the floor in that game, right?
Okay.
He joins Charles Barkley as the only rookies ever to shoot 80% or better in a game. Him and Sir Charles are the only two.
Go ahead.
Bona and Chuck. So
Go
shouts out
ahead.
to Dean Bona for that.
Yeah.
That's
I
pretty
mean,
cool.
listen, Mark, at this point, right, you're at least getting guys minutes.
Yeah,
You're getting guys that like in all other seasons would never see the floor. So maybe you're getting to see what you have from you know right, like Yabusele was playing a lot when those guys were on the court.
sure.
So
Yeah,
you kind of knew what you were getting. You got an elevated level of play from him coming off the Olympics. But the rest of these guys, right? Like a guy like Quentin Grimes could be a guy that could be in an ideal situation, right? He's in your second wave of players.
right.
Um,
Rotational
but
piece or something
I
like that.
have to laugh. Did you see the clip from when they played Atlanta with him and
Yes.
George Niang?
Yeah.
That was quite possibly some of the best in-game trolling.
That was cold.
That
cold.
was really. And do you remember like it was something like, oh, like if these guys are out here, you're not even getting on the court. Like
Yeah.
as
He
he's
said-
taking foul shots, he's just like
He said
he is literally.
he
Go
said
ahead.
Quentin would be in the he said you'd be in the corner. You'd be in the corner. If Joel was playing, you'd be in the corner. And I said, man,
He's a great. He was great when he was here.
he was.
I-
Yeah.
I really and I enjoy his unabashed honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I did see that though. That was tough. That was tough for Quentin, man. That's
And like, what are you supposed to say? Like what?
yeah.
Like you like there's nothing to say, right? Like you figured out that like he just chucks and ducks, right? Like he has never met a shot that he didn't like.
Right.
The second that he steps over the timeline, and you can't put him on the court with Maxey and Embiid and Paul George or any of those guys because those guys need to take shots.
Right. Those guys
Like he has to be on there with a second unit of guys like Adeem Bona and like I don't even want him taking opportunities away from Jared McCain like in future years. So like
yeah.
I'm curious to see what like obviously they're going to take an opportunity to shape shift this roster. I just don't know what you do with it
Right. Yeah.
because you got a lot of big pieces paying a lot of big money that if you're blessed to be able to get an opportunity to get someone to take Paul George, but good Lord, does that contract looks really, really bad.
Yeah.
For the foreseeable future, really handcuffs you at a time where you you had to spend the money, but like
Yeah.
really wish you would have spent it other in a different way. And then you look at like, I mean, not for nothing, but I look at James Harden, and James Harden is having a pretty good year out in LA.
Good. He's been good. Yeah. Yeah, I like you were saying about the the Joel thing with the knee surgery and things like that. Not to I didn't mean the sidetrack is there. I saw that bonus that I had to drop that in here. But
Most definitely.
yeah, man, him being like coming out now, like as you said about like his feelings about like the medical staff and all. To be honest with you, and I'm not even trying to be funny when I say this, is like I'm surprised it even took this long. Like when you look at
It's
his
true.
like his history of injuries, like playing here, really from the time he got here, right? Because he didn't play right away when he got here, with injuries, and I, I mean that happened with Ben too. I mean Ben sat for, I guess did they sit the first full seasons? I think I don't
The
even
first
remember.
full season, maybe.
Yeah, and I remember telling people are like telling me like friends of mine that were like big Sixers fans. They're like, no, they're gonna sit there and come back next year, and I'm like, I wait a
Mark,
whole year for this guy to get here, like what I
I
mean?
really do think that we were so ready to be done with the tanking and the
Mhm.
process
Right.
that like there was a lot of we were all drinking a lot of Sixers Kool-Aid
Right.
because we were all trying to like almost will it into existence.
Right.
And the shame of it is that like the closest that this group of Sixers got was that series in Toronto.
Hmm.
Because I really do think that like if they had been able to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals and and beat Toronto in that series, Toronto ran into a really depleted Warriors team. That group with like JJ Redick and Jimmy Butler, and at the time was a productive Ben Simmons, and a Joel Embiid who was playing at the top of his game. That was the closest that you ever got.
Yeah.
Everything else from there was, I mean, you have the Father's Day, situation, that game against the Hawks where, that series ends horrifically, and then you get the blowout against, you come home for game 6 against Boston and you lose that, and then you lose game 7 in Boston, you get absolutely trashed. And then the following season, you have the series with the Knicks. Like, you just have like it has been all downfall from that, and the fact that this team never got out of the second round is just wild, considering the talent that has come in and out. Just very, very inconsistent. But Joel Embiid, major injuries. He has the right foot stress fracture before the 2014 NBA draft that causes him to miss his first 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
He has the left orbital fracture in 2017 and 18 that he gets the concussion and the facial paralysis.
Yeah.
He has the left knee meniscus tear in 2019, 2020 that had surgery. He has the right knee meniscus tear in 2020-21, the following year, also surgery. Has the left knee meniscus tear in February of 24. That has arthroscopic surgery.
Yeah.
Right. He's also had the ankle sprains, the knee tendonitis. He has the Bell's palsy. It's just, and we've gone through the stats of like the fact that like he's, the games that he's missed versus the games that he's played. It's borderline 50-50 if it's not more now than it was when we first talked about it. But
Right.
he's
It's hard to think about, right? Like, they can't do. I can't envision a scenario like, or a pathway this offseason that you can, other than making the top pick, other than like getting a, picking in top 3, top 5, whatever they are. You can't do anything really with the roster other than maybe the Paul George contract. What else do you do in terms of like, you can't do anything until until you get some clarity on like
right.
what his status is, or, you know, is he going to be able to get on the floor this year? What's that going to look like if he does?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know really how you kind of like build a game plan for the offseason other than making the pick and trying to trade Paul George, which the only scenario I can imagine is, maybe some like conditional first, and then you have to take back expirings because there's no way you're going to be able to make the money work. He's making over what, 40 a year.
Yeah. I mean, no one is trading half the roster, right?
Right.
And the way that the NBA is set up, right, you got to make the money. You got to make the money work.
Yeah, make the money work.
And I don't even know. I mean, you'd end up having to eat a lot of that money, right? You could say that you're taking on a lot of that contract. It's bad. But listen, they're being really productive in terms of their ability to be able to tank, right? They're 0-10 in their last 10.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, I've got to give a shout out to Keith Pompey because he is trying to stimulate conversations on social media in terms of like keeping people interested. After every game, he puts out the reverse statistics of like where their record falls in relationship to everybody else, right? He's asking people for feedback about like, what they thought about the loss. And I'm going, God, I can't imagine being on the other end typing that, going like, do I type it and then just turn all the notifications off? Because I can only imagine the barrage of sarcasm that's coming.
Yeah.
But like right now, at this point, right, Mark, we know that pick is top 6 protected.
Top 6.
So if it is anywhere 7 on, they lose that pick. That pick transfers to Oklahoma City. So right now they're sitting in 5th, which is, in terms of being able to secure their pick, is huge, because it would mean in order for them to lose their pick, they would have to have multiple teams jump them in the lottery to be able to push them down.
Mm-hmm.
So like you would need teams like beyond them, like Brooklyn, Toronto, San Antonio, to be picked in the lottery to be able to like push other teams down.
Right.
So they're doing a great job, right? They're within 2 games of getting to 4th with New Orleans now. Every time they're getting to that position, the percentages are increasing, right? Because the top 3 teams all have an equal 14% chance of getting the lottery. Right now at the 5th slot, right, they're sitting at 10.5%, which, all things considered, right, if you're talking about the difference between 14% and 10%, you're in that mix. So you're talking about, like a 1 out of 10 chance. You're at least in the conversation to be able to have an opportunity to move up into that top 3. Because just like the NHL, right, they do the draft lottery for the top 3, and then everything else after that is record based.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've thought a lot about the draft and looking at how that's going to play out. I mean, I've had conversations with people about um, as we watch the March Madness tournament and
Mhm.
who might be who might be their pick here, and um yeah, like Flag's going 1, right? Like Cooper
Mhm.
Cup Flag's going to go 1. There's other guys in this like mix that like are a little concerning, like to me, at least
Okay.
to me. Like the guy,
Talk to me.
the kids from Rutgers, like Amari Bailey and
Ace, yeah,
Ace
it's
Bailey. I'm sorry,
Ace Bailey and other kids escaping my mind.
he's a guard, I think, um, from Rutgers, but you know
Dylan Harper.
Dylan Harper. Like like they're lotto picks, but they weren't in a program that like won. Like they haven't,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like they haven't played in any meaningful. They haven't played any meaningful basketball at Rutgers. Um,
Right.
so, although Ace Bailey, I mean, like that, he's a freak athlete and things
Yeah.
like that. It's like,
Athletic wise, right? Like you're talking about, a guy who's going to play the wing,
mm,
who's 6'10",
6'10", yeah,
200 pounds, right? But who is every bit of, like he's every bit of almost 19,
mm,
right? Like, so you're going to get a guy like, and right, like, could that be right? Do you need an athletic wing to maybe pair with Jared McCain and um, Tyrese Maxey? Yeah, I think that would be like, if that's, here's what I think about Mark. If that's your constellation prize at 5 or 6,
right.
I don't hate it.
No,
Like you could be in significantly worse spots.
sure, sure. I would definitely be open to giving them a chance. You know,
Mhm.
And then like I think about the big from Duke. Is it Malach, I think is how you say his last name.
Okay.
He's the center down there. And I just kind of feel, like if you're in that, if they're gonna fall in that like 3, 4, 5 range,
Hmm.
maybe you look there just to have like a backup plan for Joel.
Yeah.
Just to, I hate to use a lottery pick on something like that where it's like you're using it as like a fallback plan instead of just taking the
Right.
best player. But if you think he could be like um, any kind of an interior presence or any kind of like he can give you a little bit of offense
Yeah.
and just be like a I'll take like a healthy prime, with the other guys that we were talking about, like with Maxi being back,
Sure.
a full year of Jarrett McCain. Um, if I could just get like a young in his prime, like double machine, like Andre Drummond, I'd be happy with that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Listen, and you're talking about a guy who's going to fall in that range,
yeah,
right? Like when I'm looking at, like, I'm on Tankathon, just kind of like playing around, like looking at the simulations, right? And
mhm,
he's falling in that 5, 6, 7, 8 range. Which,
mhm,
if that's a guy that you like, um, I would love for them to and part of it, Marcus, like feeling really jaded about like where Joel Embiid is in his career, but also the experience with like Jahlil Okafor and like
Right.
taking a guy that like, is this a guy that is when you look at the way that the NBA is treading, right? Like it's trending towards wings, athletics,
Yep.
speed, chuck and duck. Like I need guys that are going to shoot. Like when you look, like when I'm looking at the Bucks Sixers game the other night when I'm there and we walk in the door and the Sixers are up 14 early, right? And you kind of figure that it's only a matter of time before things start to balance out. And right, and how does Milwaukee get back in the game real fast? Turnover three, turnover three, turnover three. They do that, and all of a sudden it's like a 4-point game,
Right.
and you're turning around going, "Yep, that's how you get in." Right. So
Yeah.
do you look at a guy like the kid from Duke who's, it's 7'2", 250, right? But every guy that I'm looking, when I look at this, Mark, in the top, I'm just going to go through until you get to, I'm just going to go top 20.
Okay.
Of the top 20, there are four international prospects and one sophomore. Everybody else is a 18, 19-year-old freshman.
Right.
So you're getting really, really young guys. I like, I think that you have to go young, athletic wing, right? Because that is how those teams, that's where that progress is going to happen when you
Right.
can stay in games because you can shoot the three.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I'm thinking more like trying to fix.
I like the idea though. I
Yeah.
like the idea, right? Because it does give you a backup plan with a guy who's, you're going to get a guy who's young. You're
Yeah.
going to get a guy who could give you some space in that part of Joel's recovery
Right.
based on whatever's going to happen in the offseason. If there's another surgery, if they just say he's not playing all next year, and then it gets into that like that medical exemption where you could potentially try to get out of that contract
Right.
if he medically retires, and then who knows what happens.
Right. And that's like the obstacle, right? Like you're saying, I totally agree with you with like where the league is headed and where it is currently. I mean, I think
Mm.
we've said on past shows about the Sixers that, that was like, especially that's part of the reason why they went out and got Paul George, right? Was like
Right.
athleticism on the wing. The Sixers really didn't have a lot of that, and they were getting beat by teams that did. You know what I mean? And
Very true.
and we were talking about that on previous shows if you go back and listen to like the ones in the archives and stuff. So it's like uh, even then, right? Like I'm excited to acquire a good young player, as everybody I'm sure is, and I'm certainly hoping for the best, but it's just kind of like that's a big thing. I think like that's a big thing for me at least is you know, because whether or not it's fair or not, we look at things like the tournament, like the March Madness tournament, and we put significant stock in that. Like if guys come in that
Oh
tournament
yeah.
and they're projected to be a top pick, and or if you're playing in it and you're in that teens 20 range, you could really improve your stock, especially if you're on a team that, you know, surprises in the tournament or something like that.
Oh
You
yeah.
can get your name on the radar and so it does have like a weight to it. And I think with Harper and Bailey, we just don't have that because we haven't seen it. It's just an unknown. I
Yeah.
don't. Bailey
Yeah.
could be a tremendous, and I've admittedly not seen him play, so he could be a tremendous, tremendous athlete, and that could be a benefit to the Sixers. But I
Yeah,
just
and you could look at a situation right like Tyrese Maxey, right? That COVID year where the tournament gets canceled. The only reason he's available when the Sixers pick is because he didn't play in the tournament.
right,
If
right,
that team plays in the tournament and he plays even half as good as as he's played since he's been in the NBA,
hmm
he's a lottery pick he's probably a top 5 pick without even thinking about it.
sure, sure.
So, but Mark, I'm going to share the screen. I'm gonna spotlight it.
All right.
I'm just over here running
Oh, boy.
tankathon sim lotteries. And listen, I'll be honest. I'm over here. I've probably clicked simulation like 20 different times. But for whatever reason, I'm sticking with this one. This one's got the Sixers moving up 4 spots to pick number 1 and take Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. At this point, Mark, the draft, the tankathon is a little game we like to call capture the flag.
Yeah.
So,
To the flag.
but listen, it's this season has kind of gone off the rails. They've got not a whole lot left, right? They've got a handful of games left. They've got what I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4. They got 5 games left. They're gonna wrap up the season. In what's that? 2 Sundays from now, on the 13th. It'll be nice to really put this kind of season to bed.
Yes, it will.
It's just been. I would have never ever thought that it would have gone this off the rails,
Yes. Yes.
but yet here we are.
I don't think I don't think either one of us did. I know that I've said on previous shows, like, I think we kind of undersold how like volatile this could be if like George was not, if Embiid had some injury trouble, or
Right.
if PG wasn't what we thought, like if he was hurt, or if there was going to be any issues there. We kind of I think we were drinking the Kool-Aid for it, you know what I mean? And I know that I certainly was. I was hoping that PG could come in here and be, OKC PG or something,
Yeah.
and that didn't happen. And but I don't. I'm with you. I certainly did not anticipate this going this bad, especially this quickly. Like it's just, it's hard. I'm at a loss for words for how bad it's been this year. How little that Maxi PG and Embiid played together, knowing that
I mean, let's be honest. Talk about that for half a second.
yeah,
Even when all 3 of them were on the floor, it looked terrible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it wasn't. They're like, that was my concern, right? Because if you remember going back to the beginning of the year, and they weren't playing a lot, and then they weren't playing a lot together, rather, and then when they did, as you said, it wasn't like great. When you have players like that, and I think that happens everywhere, where like that first half of the season, when you have that like big 3 thing, they got to learn how to play with each other, right? Like
Mhm.
guys got to like learn, they got to learn each other. It's happened other places, right? Like I've looked at like Brooklyn, right, with Kyrie and KD and Harden together. Like that was an odd
Yeah,
fit,
very true.
and they had to learn how to play together. They had a little bit more success than we had here. At least they made the playoffs, and but like and now you mentioned Harden earlier in the show. He's back to looking like James Harden because he's in a situation in LA where it kind of fits him. You know what I mean? And also he's not really sharing the ball like he has to in other places. Like when you're playing with other 2 guys that also need their touches. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, man, they never really got that chance. And then when you look at, I remember having conversations with people, and they're like, "Oh, they're gonna get healthy for the second half, and we're gonna make a run here." And it was like, but even if you do, you have to learn how to play. You're going to be playing somebody in the playoffs that has
Yeah.
played together all year together. Like, if you run into Boston or the Knicks or any of those teams, Cleveland, like those guys have been playing together all year. Like, so, um, I think we were all kind of at some point, we were all kind of drinking the Kool-Aid about it. And, it just feels like there's been a lot of misses, and I just hope that they're able to kind of correct course here a little bit this summer. I don't think this is going to be a 1-year kind of fix it thing. Even if they hit on a player in this draft and he comes in and looks incredible. It's I still think they're a couple years out. I think that Embiid thing's a big obstacle, and it's gonna be a little bit here. They're gonna have to correct course. It's gonna be difficult to do with the money that's tied up with guys.
Oh, most definitely. And Mark, I'm just looking at the guys that have played. You want to take a guess at the guys that have made a that have registered a game played for the Sixers this year?
How many?
How many? How many guys have registered a game played?
Oh man, trying to
And
think.
remember, 5 guys get on the court at one time.
70,
30 guys.
30 guys.
30 guys have. I mean, at the bottom of the list, we're talking about guys like Colin Castleton, David Rowdy, Lester Quiones, Philip Wheeler, Marcus Bagley, O'Shea Brissett, Pete Nance, Jalen Hood Schifino, Alex Reese. Alex Reese has played 12 games. Like, shout out to Yabusele,
Yeah,
who leads the team with 69 games played. He's
yeah.
played 69 out of 77 games.
He's been our only he's one guy you can count on playing. You know what I mean?
I mean, pencil him in, but like, it's just bad on bad on bad. And listen, it kind of matches and mirrors what's going on in the NBA. The NBA product,
Yeah.
it's just not great.
This is a chance,
not great.
though. This is a chance. This playoff here, for all the issues, I actually really, really like. I think the playoff picture this year is really fascinating for the NBA. I cannot wait for the NBA playoffs to start and see some of these teams that we haven't really seen there, right? Like the Pistons are in. You know what I mean? They were.
Okay. Can we, yes.
Yeah.
Can we talk about a guy? And this is a guy that I got to give him his flowers.
Yeah.
Because he's a guy that we absolutely murdered and crushed for the last handful of years.
Yeah.
Tobias Harris is having a really, really good season.
He is. He
On
is.
a team where he's filling in as that veteran leadership role.
Mhm.
Kudos to him, right?
Yeah.
Because he got, when he was here, he got served a plate full of crap for his entire time here,
We did it.
based on his contract, based on his production.
Yeah.
But like,
He's done a great job there.
he's done a
done
really good job.
Yeah. I'm happy for him. That's we were very rough on him, especially on this show. And you know, that situation in Detroit, that's a good spot, And they got some good young talent there too, like with Cade and Thompson and then some of
Mhm.
those other guys. They got, but I mean I like the West bracket too. I think OKC could play. I think they're probably going to play Memphis. I think.
I think
And,
so.
here's OKC. They have this really great young team. Like Shea's an incredible player, and all. And it's like they're playing the Grizzlies, who kind of are with Ja and all those guys are kind of like jerks. Like they're kind of like they kind of act like jerks out
Yeah.
there. So it's just like I'm excited for the playoffs this year. I think this is a chance here for the league to kind of show people again, why playoff good basketball is the best. It's sublime. There's very few things that can beat really good competitive
Oh,
basketball.
most definitely. Right. But in the West, you've got OKC and Houston, right? Houston's another team that's on the
Yeah.
come that is playing young and playing really well. Right. A Lakers team that adds Luka, right, and is sitting at number 3 above Denver. But like Golden State has come back. They fell off for a minute.
Mhm.
You got Minnesota, and then in that 7 through 10, right, you've got the Clippers, Grizzlies, Mavericks, and Kings.
Yeah.
Right, like there's a lot of teams that are like we're good for a while, but like Denver with Jokic is always going to be a tough out, trying to beat them 4 times in a row.
Yep.
Not even in a row, but like trying to beat them. But like Golden State as the 5 matching up against potentially that either the Lakers team or like a young Houston team, like there's going to be
The Warriors look unbeatable since they've added Butler. Like since they've added Jimmy, like that.
Right.
He fits in seamlessly there.
Mhm.
And Steph's still a great player. Like I think guys like Moses Mooney is like playing well for them. Like they got like that's going to be a fun matchup. Like that they're going to be fun to watch in the playoffs. And um, if the Wolves end up getting the Lakers in round one, here's Ant, who's like kind of Edwards is kind of like in a lot of people's minds. People are waiting, I think, for that like someone to move into that. Like remember last year and the year
Yeah.
before, Ant was kind of like becoming the next one, the next like real face of the league type.
Right.
And then for him to take on Luka and LeBron, if they end up seeing each other in the playoffs, I think there's a lot of fascinating matchups. Like I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the postseason.
Yeah, and you've got some up and coming teams in in the East, right? You're talking about you've got a Pistons team that hasn't been in the playoffs in a while. You're talking about an Orlando team.
Yeah,
The
the Pacers
you've
are
got
there.
Chicago, Miami, Indiana.
Mhm.
I mean, if we're being honest though, in the East, everything's going to go through Boston and Cleveland.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's like the marquee uh, matchup there. Because I've watched Cleveland a couple times this year, and that group's really talented, really athletic.
Yeah, I mean they're 62-15.
Yeah, that team's tough. So, and they're not really like, they're not like. I mean, at one time I think Donovan Mitchell was, but like they're not like a superstar laden team. Like
Mm,
like they're just like a good, like they got good talented players, and they got depth. Like they can compete. Like they can play a couple different ways. You
yeah,
know.
and listen, in the playoffs, that's how you win games.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Mark, anything? It's hard to say anything we missed when we were talking about as a team as bad. Is there anything you want to drop in before we jump out of here?
No, I think the bonus stat was the one that was really interesting to me.
I
It's
like that.
for Chuck, like joining Chuck there, but um, yeah, I don't think anything else to add. I mean, they do see. Speaking of Ian Edwards and all, I think they play them. Is that today or tonight?
Tonight.
They're playing the
Yeah,
Wolves.
you've got a busy sports day today, right? You've got the Phillies and Dodgers. You're
Yep.
gonna have you've got a Sixers game, a Flyers game. Mark's gonna be down there covering the Union tonight.
Yep.
You got everybody but the Birds is
Yeah.
in action today. So get your remotes ready. Get your devices all charged up. Whatever you're gonna watch it on, and and then you got the NCAA tournament tonight.
Yeah.
It's a good day to have multiple devices going,
It's a great day, especially it's all gloomy and rainy out. Just stay in and watch sports. It's
right? Stay home, pack it in, watch sports. You'll be good to go.
yeah.
We'll Mark, at some point we'll jump back on and put a bow on this particular season, and try to. I think at that point, Mark, we turn the page. We start looking. Maybe we'll do. We'll look ahead for the draft. We'll kind of see where they fall and where where the draft lottery falls, and then we'll kind of touch base and see what kind of prospect pool we're looking at.
Yeah, we'll get deeper into that. Once the games are over, the games.
Most definitely, yeah, the games. All right, Mark. On the way out, go Philly.
Go Cooper Flag.
Capture the flag. Here we
Capture
go.
the flag. Yeah.
Iverson, wow, what a